assimilation. If you want to come here and you want to be part of the American dream, that's one thing. But when you just want to come here and get what you can and send it back to Mexico, that's not all right. And we're kind of tired of that.
I agree with you. Thank you.
David, is anybody proposing financial incentives to encourage these kids to self-deport themselves back voluntarily? The ones under 21, for example. It seems like there's some potential there.
I'm not aware of that. I do know that the commissioner said they're seeking to repatriate these people within 2 weeks. That's the goal. We're doing that with Mexicans immediately who don't have established critical fear. Kathy, you want to add to that?
Was your question about the children that are coming across the border now, or the ones under the program that Obama has given deferred action on their immigration?
Any kids, because he's asking for $4 billion to, I think, move them inland and disperse them so they can never be deported. And for a third of that, we could give them each $1,000 and say adios. Just a thought.
I agree, and I think that's some of the agents that I spoke to confirmed that and thought that as well. Yes.
Well, she had a lot of really good points, but I don't really think we got any answers at all to
Okay.
what we're doing to just like stop these kids from being sent anywhere else, much less further interior. But my deal is Mexico's southern border is one of the most highly guarded, regulated borders in the world, and we have a military presence there. This isn't an immigration, this is an invasion. They're being allowed through, okay? The biggest problem with that is you said 20% were unaccompanied minors, which is the Media Matters word for illegal immigrants. Unaccompanied minors, 20%, that's all you hear about. MS-13 gangs, affiliations, graffitis on the wall. You got given a white scrub tour. I mean, the pictures were great. I don't care anything about what the border looks like. That's the deal. And you weren't even allowed to take pictures. Why? What are they hiding? Yeah. You can take any pictures anywhere you want in America. You weren't allowed to take it. You got shown around to see what you want. And we've got 40,000 pairs, FedBiz Ops, 40,000 pairs of size 6X underwear that were ordered for these immigrants. These aren't people coming here to work.
I agree with you that I think there are many of them, at least some of them, as many as I can tell, were fleeing very terrible situations in Central America. There's certainly a criminal element, and we are dealing with that, but we're overwhelmed right now. I'm grateful for the National Guard that's going to help in the DPS surge. I do think we need to stop the freebies. I think we need to stop all but emergency critical care from our hospitals and send people down to the road for other centers. Those are some of the things we can do. It's a federal issue. I went down there because I do represent this district and it affects this district. Though I did take a family vacation, I spent a lot of time listening and learning and confirming these things. And it's a tragic situation for the children. I do not support sending them all over the country. I support confirming whether they have credible fear on the border, and if they don't, sending them immediately back, and then only sending them to places where people want them and will care for them, and not forcing them on communities. Yes, Pastor.
I'm still a little confused. You said the uptick is because of the abuse of children. Why is there an uptick in abuse in Central America, or why the recent surge if abuse is the reason?
Well, we had it back in 2005.
So is that what we're being told, is that there's an uptick in abuse in Central America? That's why, because it's just this is flooding us right now. So is that the reason? Because it's gotten worse all of a sudden in Central America? I'm just really curious.
Well, it's orchestrated a lot. I mean, there's gang activity. The children are unaccompanied when they get here. They're certainly accompanied along the way. The coyotes that are being paid $3,000 to $8,000.
Why is it happening now? Why is
I think two reasons. One with the 2008 law, the human trafficking law. I think they're taking advantage of that. I'm sure not all of them have credible fear, but they learn to say what it takes. And then secondly, I do think it's the present administration's policy of sending these people practically all over the United States and allowing them to disappear instead of resolving the issue at the border and then repatriating them the same day. Mr. Wilson.
David, I want you to know that I appreciate what you've done. You've done a great job, and you're continuing to do a great job. And I want you to know that I agree with the people who wants to leave America. If they don't like America, I help them get out of America. Because there's places like China and Ukraine, everybody, they'd love to have them. And I just want you to know that there's one person in this meeting tonight that appreciates you and appreciates what you've done.
That's a tough act to follow.
He's an old friend from Avenger.
My question, David, is I listened to your presentation. I heard almost nothing about the gang problem and the influence the gangs are having on transporting these kids up, holding for ransom. I've had sources tell me that I believe that they're actually making these children do things like cut fingers off and ears off to send ransom notes to the families back home. Mm-hmm. This is what's going to happen. This is the kind of people that you're dealing with on these gangs. How can you go to the border and not get a big earful of what the gangs are involved in, how the cruelty on the children bringing up? Because it comes down to, in one of my opinions, if you're going to put your children in that situation, isn't that basically major child abuse coming from that country? I want to know about the gangs. What did they tell you on the border about the gang involvement and how they're going to stop it?
Well, they didn't go into detail on how they're stopping it, but they did address it. They did bring it up that they're taking advantage of the being overwhelmed with the children, and that's where the DPS was seeking to fill in the gaps, and now the National Guard. I did hear a few anecdotal stories about children being molested once they get over or abandoned. It is a very dangerous journey, and there was one slide there I skipped over some of those things when the slideshow moved on. And that is gangs, basically coyotes, that are facilitating the transportation of these children.
What's the difference between the Border Patrol buying them bus tickets and a coyote buying them a ticket across the river?
Well, because there's a United States law that they're seeking to comply with, and that needs to be changed. And there's also some policy. They've been overwhelmed. They have some restrictions with respect to what they can do and how long they can keep them, and some unintended terrible consequences for that well-intended 2008 law.
And I'll add to that. One of the things that we heard in the DPS briefing was for the gangs and the criminal activity, they're well organized. They're watching. They know the moment DPS pulls that boat up on the trailer that they can run across the river. And one of the things that Cornet started talking about and that Simpson mentioned that's important to note are the federally protected lanes. They're using that to scurry across. They disappear into the weeds, and you can't find them again. So they're very well organized, and so because they have scouts and they have people watching, it's difficult for DPS and Border Patrol to catch them when they know the moment that they've turned their back. So that's one of the reasons that make it very difficult for them to enforce it and to deal with it. And one of the reasons why, as you mentioned, the National Guard would be helpful because they can watch in those areas closely. So,
David, I think there's a big elephant in the room, and maybe I missed the answer to it years ago, but why are we unwilling to prosecute the people that pay illegals to be here? We're talking about things we're really out of our control, that are in Congress, a long way away in Washington. But I can walk into a restaurant in Thailand where I live, there's not a word of English being spoken. I hear rumors all the time, these people are illegals, and yet I'll guarantee you the restaurants are not owned by illegals most of the time. We could round up the people and they look just like us, and they're paying these people to come because it's cheap labor. Why does participate in their lobbies? What's the deal?
Big business.
I'm not sure of all the answers there, but I know we seek to use voluntarily E-Verify for our employees and our business, and it's something that someone suggested. The flip side to that is that you're basically asking citizens then to perform law enforcement. But I do think if more people would do that, and we had them all like that, it certainly would go a long ways to at least dealing with that portion of the problem. Yes, Kathy.
So would citizens who object to it, going to those types of businesses that employ, illegal immigrants? If you boycott them, they'll get the message. So, yes, the government should enforce that and they should penalize that, but it doesn't mean that the people as a whole aren't able to take action themselves.
I'm back. Okay? It wasn't a big line, so I'm back. What can the Texas House and the Congress in Texas do to fix this problem? You know, we're sending you down there to represent us. What can you do? What can the House do? What can the Senate in Texas do to fix it?
Nothing until January 2015 unless there's a special session called.
There's a number of things that we can do. The first one that I thought of was to require that the promise to appear has been complied with, and that they've been to an immigration judge, and that they have de facto legal status here in the United States and in Texas. If they knew they couldn't receive an education, that would, unless they complied with that would help enforce the federal law. Yes, we still need to change the federal law, but that would help enforce it. Another thing that we've been working on, I've been working on since day one, even before I got there, and that is stopping the corporate welfare, stopping also social welfare, except in the most dire circumstances. We need to stop the freebies. And those are things we can do as a state. Our governor certainly has stepped up to fill the gap with activating the National Guard and seeking to supplement the law enforcement effort. Go ahead.
Hi, David. Don't take what we say personally that we're against you.
I'm not.
We're very frustrated constituents. I can relate to the passion of the people here. I'm another person who appreciates David going down to the border. Why? Even Obama would go down. So he'd rather drink beer in Dallas. But I appreciate you going down there for us. But I guess the thing I want to get across is you were putting up the verses, hearkening back to my college days, when the children of Israel were going out of the land of Egypt and they were skirting around the land of Moab, they went and asked permission to enter the border. Permission was denied. They didn't go through the border, they respected the border, and they went around. And then they were attacked, at least the rear of their column was, and there was a curse on Moab for that. And but I think we need to have integrity in our borders. If you look at our Constitution, a sovereign nation has really the first job is to keep your borders intact. I've lived in many different countries. I served in the military, the army, and living in Germany, they had workers, Turks, that they invited in after World War II, who never assimilated. They will never be German citizens. They don't want to be German citizens. They want to be Turkish citizens living in Germany. It's a confusing situation. But I wanted to ask a question to anybody here, but to yourself as well. What is the amount of legal immigration to America? Just recently listened to an interview with a gentleman that had all the facts, and I'm missing part of my brain, but it was 1 million, I want to say it was about 1 million people a year are legally brought in by our government, most of them Muslims, by the way, and they're planted wherever they want to plant them, Tennessee, Iowa, different places, Ohio, and so we've already got more, and his statistics are, ratio-wise, that we've got a nation of 300 million people. We don't need any more immigrants. If people are being paid to work, to not even work, that shows that we don't need more immigrants. We need our borders protected so that we need a good currency. We need a lot of things. I can harken back to my days supporting Ron Paul, but we need a lot of things, but what we don't need is more people at the trough. And, you know, I understand your compassion for these people, but these strangers, if you look into the scripture, those strangers had to abide by the laws of Israel, and they had to worship the God of Israel. They weren't allowed to do what they wanted, higgly-piggly. And, you know, these people aren't coming in with a good Christian heart. Most of them are criminals anyway. And we have a lot of people. I worked for a big multinational corporation in the oil field. I worked with one gentleman who won the lottery in Algeria. And he gets to live in America. He's a Muslim, brings his wife, his arranged marriage wife, and his kids. And they're all good citizens. And he gets benefits I don't get. I was born here. And that's the frustration of our people. And we don't have a good currency, and here's the real issue, David, and you know this as well as I do. We've got Republicans in the Senate and the House who benefit from cheap labor, so they encourage it. You got Democrats in the Senate and the House who benefit from what they perceive as future voters, so they encourage it. And the problem is that the middle Americans are getting so frustrated it's coming to that loggerhead when all of a sudden something bad will happen. And who it was with the Roman Empire, true. Any great empire, whether it was Parthia, Persia, Rome, if you look at their whole setup, when they got to the point we're at, it falls apart. And I'm just saying, we love you. Okay, I want you to know
I understand that.
I love you.
I
couldn't think of anybody I want as my representative but you. Certainly wouldn't want Tommy Merritt, but
Well, I'm working on that. I'm going to do what I can. I hear you loud and clear. I support the rule of law. I do not support giving away the fruit of our labors, except when it's done voluntarily. I do believe there's a place for charity for individuals and families and churches, but when the government does it, it just encourages more of it. And we not only need to secure the border and control it, but we have got to stop it here in our own country, even for Americans, and making them dependent. And when they're not working, it does leave a vacuum, and I oppose that. And there's only so much I can do at the state. I'll do all I can. Our staff's been working on it hard and diligently.
I feel like I keep getting up here, but there's a lot of different generations in here, but I think I'm the only one that's really in the age range of 30 that's come up here. We're a different generation than the people that said, we love you, we like you, we support you. David, I don't know you. I know your voting record, and I like it. Okay? So you're doing your job on that end. But the Constitution says our federal government, its first thing is it's supposed to secure our borders. We're securing other people's borders better than ours. And all I hear about is more legislation that needs to be passed. The Constitution's been around for almost 300 years. That's what it says. Why does it take an act from you or Senator Cornyn, who I don't like? Why do I have to wait on someone who I don't trust, a dinosaur? Why do I have to wait on him to secure the border of my state? I've got 4 kids, 5th one on the way. These kids have scabies. Yeah, thank you. I'm not scared to have kids. And I pay for it.
I have 7. I agree with you. I think we need to bring our troops home. And so,
park them on the border. I'll take them to the I don't care. Here's the deal. Scabies, influenza, viral pneumonia. And these kids are going to get put in this school. I promise you. They're going to get put in schools. Saw it on the Drudge Report. You can read the Drudge Report. It's national news. Schools are scrambling, trying to figure out where these kids are going to go. And I promise you, they're not going to do some background check to see if somebody that they know showed up to court to make sure they're legal. Okay? So, I like you, but you're dealing with a different generation. I vote with my feet and I vote with my money. And we're going to make sure that we're not waiting on your bill to pass. You need to get pissed off. You need to get mad. You need to get down there and say, look, stop them now. Get them out. That's somebody else's problem. Deal with Mexico if we have to. Tell them to shut down their lower border. Deal with our president. Yank his tail down there because he works for me. He don't work for you. He works for me. Get him down there and shut it down. In the 21st century, our war is fought with demographics, not with bullets and guns. They are bleeding Texas blue. And I'm sorry if you're a Democrat in here. I don't like Republicans a lot. I like independents. But here's the deal. They're changing the demographic, and it don't take 150,000 people. And there's more than that that's come across the border this year. There's more than 150,000.
I'm not sure how to follow that. I have a friend of mine who was elected to be our senator from District 2 over in Van County, who was down the border, and you might have known Bob Hall was down there also.
Whoop, whoop.
He was telling me that they were saying to him that there's 300,000 on the way right now. There's 300,000 on the way. By the end of the year, we're going to have 900,000 illegals coming across the border. Now, I applaud Governor Perry for sending 1,000 soldiers down there, but 1,000 is not going to do it. One gentleman said we're under invasion, and that's exactly what's happening. We're being invaded. There's an incentive for them to come up here and change everything that we have. Everything
I appreciate your perspective, and I don't know about those numbers. I do know the Constitution does speak about invasion, but I do believe the type of invasion they're envisioning there is a military invasion. The people are coming, most of them are coming, not all. There are criminals, there are terrorists, there is the drug cartel, there are the coyotes, but most of the people coming right now are taking advantage of the present laws and practices. They just give themselves up. Customs and Border Protection is doing their job. They have no problem apprehending people. The problem is with immigration, customs, and enforcement, and what happens there. And it's a very serious problem. And it's being...
Article 1, Section 10 of the U.S. Constitution doesn't define whether it's a military invasion or not. It just says we're in trouble. The state has the right to take out.
But I'm saying they're not coming across, most people, with guns. They're just coming there, you know...
Well, not yet.
They're exploiting a loophole. They're from South America. You just said it yourself. They repatriate the Mexicans the same day. Why do you think
they are
to
seeking to...
Mexico?
There is discussion and hopefully some movement and correcting that so that the Central American nations will be treated similarly to Canada and Mexico. Yes.
There are the 50% who are not family units. The 50% of the population, that the illegals that are coming over that are not family units or unaccompanied children, are not being sent into the country. They're being held and then they are being deported. And there's 2 pilot programs going on now for Honduras and El Salvador to have a turnaround time of 3 days on those non-family units and non-unaccompanied minors. Somebody said earlier that the unaccompanied minors are the ones everybody's talking about right now. That's true, but the larger percentage is being sent back at this point, allegedly.
I just want to say, I mean, this was not